20. Johnson back. Pressure on. Throwing over the middle. Complete to the 10. Touchdown, Williams.
Welcome to the Crowd's Eye College Football Podcast. This is Kevin Trimble, and I'm with Louisville football legend and former Super Bowl champion Chris Redman. And Chris, I'm just going to get right to it. So we saw the playoff poll come out, and we see number 1's Alabama, number 2 Clemson, number 3 Notre Dame, and number 4 Georgia. But number 5 and number 6, they want a shot at number 4. We know Georgia is going to play Alabama. But my question to you is, when you talk about 5 and 6, who do you think is going to get in there? Is it Oklahoma or is it Ohio State?
I guess I'm a little more of an Ohio State guy. I think they're scoring a lot of points. I think they're a little bit better, a full team as opposed to Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's a good team as well, and they're doing well. But right now the type of numbers that Ohio State's throwing up, I think they got the best outside chance of getting in if that opportunity presents itself. But it kind of throws the debate out there that they need more spots, man. The 4 spots is not enough. They need to keep widening those spots to give other teams a legit chance, and I think they'll do that before the next few years is up.
Well, to me, whether you're sitting around the break room, the water cooler, or hanging out at the 19th hole, or you're in that committee room down in Dallas that's voting on this, here's my question. So you look at Oklahoma has 1 loss, and that's 3-point loss to Texas on a neutral field. Ohio State has 1 loss, and oh, by the way, it was a blowout 29-point loss to a 6-6 Purdue team. How do you match those 2 up right there? Because if you look at the schedule as well, we say Oklahoma had the 1 overtime win. They had to beat Army in overtime, but Ohio State had to beat Maryland in overtime. They only won by 1. How do you kind of judge that? And is it defense, or is it, to me it's almost comes down to who's got the better defense that can keep somebody under 50?
Yeah, that's pretty much, it's kind of sad to say, but, college is kind of becoming it's an offensive game. It really is. And, you always say defense wins championships, but, the offense sells the tickets and fills the stadium. That's kind of, I'm sure, in the back of everyone's mind. I hate to say it, that's kind of the reality is, people want to see those high-scoring games as opposed to those, low-scoring, single-digit games. And that's just the reality of selling tickets and filling the stands. And that, I think, sometimes comes into the decision-making when it comes down to, playoff and television ratings.
Well, and I think about defense because you know how 2 weeks ago in the NFL after the Chiefs-Rams games, everybody's saying, hey, look at these, the person that got the most attention from the Rams-Chief Monday Night Football was Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma's coach, because of his fancy offense. But if you watch last night, the highest-ranked team in the NFL last night, the New Orleans Saints, they lost 13 to 10. I mean, it was defense. So, defense is still at the end of the day going to win. Well, let's go down another level, and that level is back to the local level, and we talk about college. We know there's quite a few, not as many as recent years, openings for head coaches. Colorado's open, Georgia Tech's open, Maryland's open. East Carolina just opened as well. That's non-Power 5. But your alma mater, University of Louisville, opened. The prodigal son, who we both know well in different ways. Jeff Brom said no, which I respect, is going to stay at Purdue and finish what he started. What do you see about what's Vince Tyree got up his sleeve, and what do you think Louisville needs to look at for a coach?
Well, you want to find a guy similar to like what's happening with Chris Mack and the basketball team. I think we found kind of a diamond in the rough with Chris Mack. Well, she was already a good coach at Xavier, but he's a guy that knows how to relate to players, who's somewhat younger. That the recruiting battle, we've kind of talked about it before. Recruiting is everything in college, and I think ultimately you got to find that guy that can sit in the living rooms and convince parents that not only going to be a better player and get an opportunity to maybe play on the next level, but he's going to grow as a human being and as a man. And I think those are the kind of coaches that you got to go look for, that not only are just really good X's and O's guys, but know how to relate to these kids nowadays and be able to you know, just be there for them when they need them on and off the field. And so, you know, I think we'll find there's guys. I think it's a tough market right now. I mean, there's some guys out there that have some pretty good names, but no like high profile. And that might not be a bad thing either. Sometimes bringing a guy in there that's got, you know, really high expectations and wants to work really hard to build a program. Sometimes those are the guys that end up being long-term and better coaches. So I have the utmost confidence that Dennis Ray is going to get the right guy, and you know, hopefully, really, I know this city of Louisville is going to rally around whoever he brings in, because you know that's what we do around here in Louisville, and there's a lot of great fans, and they want to see good football, and I'm sure we're going to bring that back. It may be a little quicker with Jeff Brom just because of the amount of recruits that he would have helped brought in, but you know, it might be a 2 or 3, maybe 4-year deal. But I think you know, times are still will be fine and look good for the University of Louisville's future.
Now, and I guess here's the question I have is that it's not like Louisville has an opening because the coach left for a better deal. You know, Louisville has an opening because the coach left it. You know, was asked to leave because things weren't going and they weren't meeting expectations. And I wonder, Chris, right now, I've heard some things about, you know, offensive schemes and hey, I like a coach that maybe runs an offense. And then, you know, Scott Satterfield, great coach at Appalachian State, heard his name pop up. Neil Brown heard his name pop up. But I look at those, especially with Satterfield, and this is a question I have for you. You played, you know, big-time Division I football, and you look at Appalachian State, you look at Satterfield. Satterfield, for the last 20 years, only 3 of them have been spent off of Appalachian State's campus in Boone, North Carolina. The other 3 were at non-Power 5 conferences. And so that's 17 years right there. I always view this, what's the difference between, you know, especially in today's, the requirements of a head football coach in Division I football? As in, there's probably more people on the training staff at University of Louisville than in grad assistants and on the whole staff at Appalachian State. Is Louisville in need more of a program builder and a culture builder, or are they more in need of somebody who understands X and O's and can rah-rah people?
Well, I mean, the ultimate is if you can find both, you can find a guy that can do everything. Those guys are hard to find. You know, I look at a guy like John L. Smith, who was the ultimate organizer. You know, he really knew how to put a staff together, and everybody loved him. And he's a great person. But you know, he wasn't really the offensive guru. He wasn't. You know, he was more of a special teams guy that really built the program around it, surrounded himself with great coaches, and that can make you a great coach too. So you know, obviously we'd love to get a guy that can do both, but right now I think the culture needs to change big time for this football team right now, because there's some good athletes there, but I just don't know what kind of leadership and you know, and all the other intangibles it takes to be, you know, a top college program. And I think those are the things that need to be instilled first, and then you know, hopefully you know, once we get the real big 5-star guys to come in here and really change the program, I think that will definitely come later.
Well, what names are you thinking about, say, for the Colorado job, the Maryland job, the Louisville job? What names are out there that people you've met, you've heard about, that you've watched and followed? What are you thinking about?
Man, I think there's, you know, the same names you kind of heard about. The Appalachian State coach seems to be, you know, probably the front runner for this Louisville job. You know, there's a lot of great young coaches I think you could take. I mean, there's a guy that's a quarterback coach for the Chicago Bears is my backup, that's doing a heck of a job up there with that Chicago quarterback. You know, Dave Ragone, I think he'd be a great guy to come in and be a coordinator for a team like Louisville or someone like Colorado. I think you know, there's going to be a new group of young coaches that are going to come, kind of like what's going on in the NFL with the quarterbacks. The young group of quarterbacks kind of needs that. I think that needs that wave of guys to come into the coaching profession for college to really revamp. And you know, we've had such legendary coaches like Nick Saban and everything a long time. I think there needs to be another group of guys to come through. And you know, we'll see who those guys are. I mean, there's some decent names out there, but nobody really stands out yet. but they got to go earn that. So hopefully some of these athletic directors won't just pick a guy that has a ton of experience, just been around and waited his turn, as opposed to someone that's got a lot of talent and can bring something to a college and turn a program around fast.
Well, Chris, what do you think about family trees? And the reason I say that is I made a big list of we're doing research to talk to you and some other folks, but Ryan Day, in not particular order, but Ryan Day, Luke Ohio State, the OC, Luke Fickell, Cincinnati, Dave Renata, defensive coordinator, LSU, Scott Satterfield, Neil Brown, Josh Heupel, Bill Clark at UAB. But then I have another column, and it's called Any Nick Saban Assistant or Former Nick Saban Assistant. And I bring that up not because of a scheme, but because of an understanding of the process and building a culture. And the one, family tree that has, been successful, very few have not been successful from that family tree, is the Saban. And I brought up another name that came from that family tree is Mel Tucker, the defensive coordinator at Georgia. And I'm shocked why we haven't heard that name. And the reason I say that is it reminds me of a recent Louisville coach who was brought in because of leadership culture, not based on a scheme, and that was, Charlie Strong. But, Mel Tucker, grad assistant at Michigan State under Nick Saban. Defensive backs coach at LSU National Championship under Nick Saban. Then he goes to Ohio State for a couple of years under Tressel and those guys. Then NFL, but then Alabama back to Saban. Now he's at Georgia under Kirby Smart. This guy knows about culture and leadership and process and everything that goes around. How come we're not hearing his name? Any idea on that?
I don't know. That is interesting. There's a Coach Grantham who's here at Louisville and done a great job defense coordinator. There's another guy that has been around a long time, has done really well. Kingsbury. There's a lot of names out there, but yeah, I know. Like when you're around a program like Alabama, you can't do anything but learn how to be the best recruiter in the country. And right now you go into a high school locker room like, oh yeah, this guy's getting recruited by Alabama. Well, he must be the best guy in the state because that they've earned that respect over time because of what they've done on the field. And if you could bring a guy like assistant coach from an Alabama to your organization, you're only going to help yourself just because of how big that Alabama name has come, especially in the recruiting world. I could definitely see someone going after some of these guys, but it is kind of interesting why they're not getting the opportunities that they probably should. But I think they will. I think it's interesting that Jeff Brom had two chances to go to the University of Alabama to be a coordinator. I mean, how fast would he have been a head coach? With those kind of athletes that he'd got a chance to use his offense. So.
Well, you think about every offense and defensive coordinator he's had in the last 6 years are all head coaches now. And that's where I always look at family tree. And that's one of the things. Due respect to Bobby Petrino, I thought he was a great play caller, not a great head coach. How many of his former assistants not named Brom are head coaches, and head coaches that we've heard of out there. And Matt Wells was there for a little bit, but if you look at Saban's, it's got Kirby Smart, even Lane Kiffin, but you got the Kirby Smarts, you got the Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee, Loxley OC. I've heard his name in the hunt for Maryland. And no, as you know me, I'm a big, because of I believe in, I've been on a losing team in high school when a big coach came in, and I carried those lessons of culture and process all the way through 23 years in the Marine Corps. So my focus is usually, hey, let's get discipline, let's establish a process, let's build the culture, and then sustain it and keep growing. And that's how I think Louisville needs that, and I hope they get it. Well, let me ask you one more question, Chris. This weekend, state championships start tonight, correct? In Kentucky.
It does. It starts tonight. I think the class 1A and 3A maybe. Then tomorrow's 2A and 6A and 5A.
You know what's interesting is that there's one team, and I don't know, it's parity, and I'd love your opinion on it because you're close to it. There's only one team out of the 8 that are playing for a state championship that is a private school, and that's Christian Academy of Louisville is playing Mayfield. Everybody else is a public institution. What's that have to say about? Is that parity? Is it the private schools are down, or you know what? Maybe people are taking a different choice and establishing their own cultures at these public schools.
It's probably a little bit of both. I I think Trinity was really young this year. They had some injuries throughout the season. They came on strong towards the end, gave Male all they wanted in the last round of the playoffs, and so I think they were an up and coming team. And you know, you look at Trinity or St. X, who has a brand new head coach. You know, they were down to their third quarter. So, you know, you look at them like, man, they got Kevin Wallace, who came from Bowling Green, who did an outstanding job with you know, injury. I think they lost their tailback the first part of the last playoff game as well. So, you know, these guys are doing good. Maybe a little bit banged up, a little bit young, but you got to say that the public schools really, you know, took that opportunity this year and done really well. Look at a school like Moore, who, you know, has one of their best years of their whole career for their history of their school. And so, you know, there's a lot of great stories about public schools. I think you can still win there. You can build programs. It's hard because these coaches aren't getting paid a lot. They're doing it out of the love of the game and the love of people and kids. And so, you know, hopefully that someday will change and they start paying some kids, some guys a little bit more money because they have such a big impact on, you know, kids' future and lives down the road. And it can get some guys where, you know, it just takes a lot of time to build a program, and it's not a lot of money. So maybe those things will change. But real happy to see Males has an opportunity to win another state championship, and they got a great group of guys, a lot of speed, a lot of athletes, and they got a heck of a quarterback who's
that quarterback can run and throw. He seems like he's got a little moxie too. He reminds me of somebody I knew back in my day who was had a little moxie. Am I correct on that assumption?
Well, I'll tell you what, he definitely got one of the only high school quarterbacks I've ever seen with a tattoo. So
got a little Crabtree in him, if you ask me.
Definitely got some Crabtree in him for sure, and plays really hard. And what a great athlete. Too bad he's not 6'3", or he'd be a top pick in the country for colleges. But,
welcome to my world.
That's life, right?
It is. You know what? Find something else and make it better.
That's right.
Hey, well, I'll leave you on this, though, and it goes back to what's really interesting about cultures and processes. If you look at the other teams in the state championship, those are teams you hear all the time. You know, Jim McKee down at Scott County, you know, he's won a state championship. He's got a program. But then you go to, you know, Mayfield. I mean, you know Mayfield from the Lake House. We've heard about Mayfield our whole life. Johnson Central, Franklin Simpson, Beechwood, Pikeville. It's almost like every single team, I think, it has a state championship ring somewhere in their trophy case. That's what's pretty exciting.
Sure.
So
yeah, they build great programs. Excited to watch this week. It should be a lot of fun.
Well, I'm excited. Well, listen, Chris, it's great talking to you, buddy. Keep me posted if you hear anything, get any ideas on Coach. Tell all your friends, Mel Tucker, give him a look. You know, because anything, like I said, it's kind of like when you buy a racehorse, you hire a CEO. Family trees have a lot to do with it, and usually you can't go wrong. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right. We'll do it, brother. I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Well, listen, take care, and I'll give my best to the family. And here at the Crowdsline College Football Show podcast, we'll get back with you in a week or so, Chris. I look forward to talking to you.
All right, Kev. Thanks, buddy. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Feel the power of the crowd.